around Chicago, Chicago, I'll show you around.
Power to the people. And just say Shot City. And if you don't know by now, I'm talking about Shot Town.
Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to the Chicago Sunnyside podcast. We're your hosts, Kasabez and Giziribtah. Back again with this is episode 34, right?
Yes.
All
Where does
right.
time go?
Keep on chugging along, and we're gonna keep bringing it to you fresh. I'm back here in Bobo Gelasso. Today I'm here at my home, so you can see my nice guava tree in the background, and my sister here is still enjoying the Windy City and all of its wind.
Yeah, I'm listening to all of your sounds of nature over there, and I'm like so jealous because we still have windows closed,
Plastic
boots on
up.
the ground. Yeah, all of that.
Oh no, I'm so sorry. So
We're
I feel so
getting there.
bad for you guys. Yeah. It'll come. It'll come. We're wrapping up our series on our celebration of 30 years of YKYK. This episode, we're going to focus on just talking more so about like the culture in general. We've also already brought to you, some good footage from our trip and from our pilgrimage, from our celebration. And, it's pretty well documented. So today we just want to talk to you guys a little bit more about the culture in general. Like, people will ask, why will you take your whole family and then go live in Africa somewhere, the country nobody's ever heard of? And honestly, maybe you could get a little bit more appreciation if you actually come to visit. But it's, in the meantime, we can talk a little bit more about some things, facets of the culture that I think don't end up either getting noticed or sometimes just don't end up getting understood because, as we know, we grow up thinking about things through a certain lens in the West and the modern societies in the United States or what have you. And that way of thinking really shapes the way we look at even other cultures and what we'll experience other places where we go. And so, when you come to a place like Africa where it's really built on a totally different way of seeing the world, there's certain things that you really have to have a context for to understand a little bit better what you'll be experiencing.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because most of us, especially growing up in America, growing up in the West, we have this kind of like a fantasy in our minds that, when we go back home to Africa, it's going to be this thing. But in reality, it's everything that you are wanting, but not what you're expecting, because it's going to look and be shaped in ways that you probably never even considered or imagined because you just hadn't been exposed to it. But at the same time, it's so enlightening that it forces you, or it should force you to like just humble yourself and recognize that our home is like the key to our human genius, like being able to unlock that. It's a constant challenge, a constant constant effort to be raising your quality, aware of your surroundings, things that we kind of take for granted in the West because we kind of get on like autopilot and just go about life robotically. But in a culture, you have to be constantly thinking, constantly assessing, constantly observant of everything on the seen and the unseen realms of what's happening around you. And the modern society just doesn't offer us that.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, when you look at how we approach life in general, what life is about, what are our priorities, what motivates us in life, and you'll see that, especially in the more rural cultures where people are living according to the natural principles you'll see that there's a big priority and respect given to nature itself. Not only just saying, because I think, we have tree huggers in the United States and the modern world. We have people who like to go hiking and, go on safari and different things like that and experience the physical manifestations of nature, but without the awareness of the fact that, I guess if we can get a little bit deep for a second, this idea that if there's a divine creation and that divine creation or the creators of this world are not visible to us, then maybe the invisible is what makes the visible, come to exist. And so even in that logic, what we see in nature, when we talk about the forest, when we talk about the rivers, the lakes, the mountains, and things of that nature, even those manifestations of nature that we can see have their unseen aspect, have their unseen kind of source. And acknowledging the spirits of the lands, the spirits of the waters, is a key part of a traditional life. And, that's where you see in different indigenous cultures, where you see harvest ceremonies where they give thanks for the harvest, give thanks for a good harvest to the divine, or ceremonies before planting to wish to the unseen for a good harvest, for a bountiful harvest. And then you say, hey, help us have our harvest be good this year, and we'll make sure to share with you after we harvest. And then you have the harvest ceremony to share something with the divine afterwards.
Quite fascinating to me, because it makes complete sense when you're trying to harmonize with the natural world around you. You want to be in harmony with it. Can this land produce? Can this space be fruitful where you even want to plant, yourself and your family? So it was just...
Does this land even accept to give me food? If I plant a seed, will it accept to, allow it to grow and give me a harvest to be able to, show that I'm being accepted here? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like putting the cart before the horse to ask some of the questions that people ask, because really, what people need to do, and I know it's expensive and I know it takes time, and I know, like we were talking about last time, it's difficult to get time off work to come to Africa, even if you have the money, even if you have the will, just to get time to come. Or, if you have time, maybe you don't have the money, or the money might be difficult for you. So it's definitely obstacles to coming over here. But, the thing is like, if it's a priority, you find a way, and then there's certain other things that you might say, okay, this is going to have to be sacrificed, or kind of less of a priority, because the big priority is, let me get home. Mm-hmm. So once you can make that a priority, then you find a way. And if it takes a year, 2 years, 5 years, I mean, us getting over here, it's now been 4 years since we've moved, but it's been a goal for much longer. Yeah, 4 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we moved right when Biden got inaugurated, and now we're here, and
with mighty Trump.
Trump 2.0, as they call it. But yeah, I think that people want to jump and just say, hey, where am I going to be at? And then it's like, you're not realistic and not thinking things through and feeling things out, building connections, all of these things, and getting used to the culture, and just visualize how you'll be able to function just with other people, or just with the land, just with the climate, with the heat that you have to deal with, or power outages, different challenges that we experience here that you might not, we aren't used to in the West. So you have to come and see it first before you can try to jump and come over here, make those type of big decisions, like, oh, where I'm gonna build my house. Like, that's a big decision, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not even there yet.
Yeah. And that whole notion of perhaps going to our motherland, our father's land, looking for this concept of freedom. And in reality, the culture is not built on that concept of freedom. You know, like the Western culture, if we call it culture, at least promotes this idea of liberty and freedom. And in our quest or search for this so-called liberty and freedom, it's liberty and freedom to do what? Liberty and
Right.
freedom to do whatever you want to do. And it just gives us this like you have no boundaries. You can do whatever. You can eat what you want when you want. You can drink, smoke, drugs, sex, promiscuity, change your gender. You know, you can do in the West anything you want.
Yeah,
Literally.
I get what you're saying, but I think that when people talk about freedom, I think we get it wrong, or maybe just an incomplete picture on what freedom is. Because here, where I live, where we live here, you know, the kids walk around. Little kids walk around. I see 3 or 4 year olds walking to buy bread. You know, you go to the market and you see like the ladies who are out selling the little food, you know, small food, and then they have their kids with them, and the kids are wandering around with the other vendors and the other vendors' kids and stuff, you know. And just being a child and being able to be free like that, you know, not always like, oh, come here, come here. Like I remember one time I was at an event, and there was a new mom who was there, and then the child is like maybe just learn how to walk, maybe 1 years old, like that, something like that. And then like the child's trying to walk around, and the mom is like following after the little boy, like, oh no, you know. And that's like slowly putting the kid in a psychological prison, like, oh no, you can't even walk away from your mom when you're around other people. And I get it where there's safety issues nowadays, but that again, like, you know, there's certain factors that end up being putting limitations on us at the same time as it's happening. It's like in the name of freedom, but in the name of freedom, people can do what they want, and then that's what makes people dangerous to the point where we feel like we can't be free to do what we want. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, you know, like that notion of freedom, um, even in that expression, what you're talking about, the freedom for the, you know, your children to be able to just play, to be able to
Mm-hmm.
be children, to be able
To
to
go
run.
play in dirt, eat some dirt, whatever you want to do, you know,
Yeah,
wander outside, and you know, it's so it's such a different version of freedom, because you know you get the notion that the person is just going to be able to learn and, you know, figure out life, as opposed to, you know, being told no, don't do this, like all day long, until you kind of just in a box in a room somewhere or sitting at a desk, because that's what the system is kind of gearing us towards our whole life.
yeah, yeah. And the one thing when we talk about that notion of freedom and the children being able to run and play and just be children, the concept of family is what comes to mind, and even your
Mm.
community comes to mind, because your community is your family too. Because and there was a day, at least I can remember, where in my childhood we were free to roam our neighborhoods, and our neighbors looked after each other's children and the like. Our environment has changed drastically since then, but in Meritah, you have that. You have your children being looked after, the whole community, the whole marketplace, if you will. So the child does have those abilities to navigate, but the culture itself also gives like boundaries. It gives you like an order. It gives you like a structure that you just
Right.
learn how to navigate early on in life, that it's like you understand your place as a child, as a woman, as a man, as an elder, as a youth. You have like this hierarchy and a respect and just an order that is so, you know, seamless, because it just works. It just fits
Yeah.
for everybody to you know, navigate within those quote unquote boundaries, and it gives you like that quote freedom, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you're free, within the boundaries. But,
Yeah.
interestingly, the boundaries are there, and they're like, they're known, they're put up front. It's not like kind of give you the illusion that you're free, but you're not really. Like, I have a close family member who, recently had children, has a couple of children, the oldest is about 4 or so now. And the way she'll talk to him is in the this almost like cartoon mom voice, like, hey, do you want to put on your shoes so we can get going? And then almost like the child has a choice, do you want to put your shoes on or not? But it's not really a choice. Like, she's gonna make sure that the child puts on the shoes and understands that she is putting on the shoes because she wants to put on the shoes, not just because mom wants her to put on the shoes. But find a way to make her want to put on the shoes, and not do it because, okay, let me make sure I'm respecting my mom. So it's interesting, the way that, I mean, you can see in the United States where it's this level of like fake sense of freedom, where there's certain options, you think you have options, but it's only the options that's been presented to you. Like, as far as even what we talked about in terms of harmonizing with nature and making sure to take care of the land and the spirits that own the land. Like, that's a totally I don't even want to say foreign concept. It's not a concept at all in the United States. Like, people have no concept of that in mind, to even think that that's something that they're free to do. So, the extent to which we kind of get put in a box just by the fact that, it's only certain information we're exposed to and other things we don't get to hear about, is, again, another box that we're put in. I wanted to talk about a experience I had. We traveled, in January, and there's a brother who was traveling with us, and apparently I heard after we both had left, that he was telling one of the other brothers, oh, I think so and so doesn't like me. And it gave me, I don't really want to get into details on the situation, but the point I'm trying to bring up here is just to say, it made me think. It made me think about this concept of so-and-so liking me, because that in the United States, or, the brother actually was from London. So even in the United Kingdom, or just in the West in general, this concept of I like you, I don't like you, it's a big deal. And even though for us who have been kind of trying to model ourselves after a Kemetic paradigm, after a traditional African paradigm for years, like, now it almost seems weird for someone to say that. But I had to really try to go back in my memory, like, no, I remember one time I was working at a restaurant, and one of the cooks, one day, I don't know exactly what happened, I can guess, but one of the cooks, who was like the head cook, he just one day said, I don't like you. And I was like, I don't know where that came from, but I don't know. I didn't last much longer there after that. So my point being, like, people really will treat you based on if they think they like you or not, or if they think that there's something that they need from you, or that they want to get from you, then they'll treat you based on that. Or if they feel like, oh, I just like being around you, I enjoy being around you, or whatever. Or if you don't, maybe if the person who doesn't like you is not going to treat you with favor, and is not going to give you the things that maybe you need. And so that's a concept that's very real in the West, which in our traditions, we really, have to look and say, it's not really part of it. You can have relationships and be friendly with people. Like, people are friendly with each other because you're supposed to be. It's not because of some kind of a affinity that you have for the person. It's just because it's good. You're showing your good quality by being kind. So you're not being kind because of something in the other person that you want, need, or just like, but because you yourself are doing it for yourself. You know, you're doing it because this is the reflection of you that you want people to see, and that the reflection even of your family that you want people to have as well. Because
Yeah,
when people see you, they talk to you, they're going to be asking, oh, whose child is this? Whose student is this?
absolutely, absolutely. And that emotionalism, we're just steeped in that in the West, and we don't know oftentimes the difference between thinking and our emotions, and we function so much allowing our emotions to drive or steer the cart, steer the horse, where it's like if we put a little more thought into managing our emotions, thinking before we react, perhaps we can even advance as a culture, as a people, as a society, as humanity. Because at what you're talking about, you do things because you're supposed to do it, not because you're going to get something for it. It's just what's required of you to be like a human being, and we lose our humanity in getting caught up in our emotions. I started working with a group of teens not too long ago, and I've been out of the teenage realm in some aspects, dealing with especially like inner city youth. And it has like given me some reality checks that I wasn't even, kind of expecting, because I've been trying to introduce them to concepts that we're talking about here, doing things because you are supposed to do it, raising your quality, thinking, even the notion of family and strengthening family bonds and all of these things. And I'm still like shocked about the number of people who don't even know the names of their grandparents or their great grandparents, meaning like their parents don't know their grandparents. Um,
Mm.
it's just like I'm like kind of dumbfounded by that disconnect, and more likely than not, I can only imagine that there had to be some sort of breakdown in the family somewhere, and it couldn't be overcome because of emotions, because of some tension or something that went awry that you hadn't been able to navigate. But that notion of family is so very strong in the culture. It's like it's at your foundation. Like you can't navigate, you can't move around, you can't function without this notion of family. It's like cutting off your arm, cutting off your leg, if you don't have this concept of honoring your family, honoring your ancestors, honoring that which allowed you to give life, even if you don't agree with, a parent, a mother or father, even if you've had some sort of falling out or what have you, there's still like a respect that is just always there because they're the ones that gave you life. So you find ways to honor even if you disagree. And that's something I had to come to terms with through this process of this education of teaching me to go beyond how I feel and think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, people would think, oh, cutting off a family member is like cutting off my hand or whatever. Like I'll be better off without my hand than being with my family. But they don't realize like you sever right here. You not the rest of the body. You the hand. The hand comes off and the hand dies. You the part that falls off and dies, and then the rest of the family is the part that has to survive without the hand. So it's like a self-sabotage that's hard to even explain.
Yeah. And so we don't need the, ball and chain and the shackles anymore, because we will self-destroy, ourselves through our
Right.
emotions, through the way that we function and go about even problem solving, conflict resolution. Some of just the very you think is so very basic, but there are these fundamental aspects of life and culture and of existence that we don't have a very strong foundation because of our disconnect. You think about people who have an indigenous cultural background. Mexicans have Mexico, Chinese have China, Indians have India. You go all around the world, people have their culture to go back to and get the wisdoms from, get their foundation from. But Africans, oftentimes, one, don't feel that connection, and two, even if they know that connection is there, oftentimes it's been stereotyped in a way that it's negative, and we want to be kind of removed from that. So we kind of craft our own culture within this modern culture that wasn't designed or built for our success and us to be able to thrive. So we'll always be kind of bumping our heads on the system if we're trying to use like America as our model for culture.
I just saw a Facebook post. Someone was asking, "Do Black Americans have a culture?" It was a bunch of comments. I didn't get into the weeds and what people were saying, but of course, people are like, "Yeah, of course we have a culture and this and that." But I think that the problem is the way the forced separation from our culture really happened. It's like people still have not been able to recover from that, and unfortunately, the way everything went down. I mean, we just did this special with Dusabo in February about the slave trade and how all of that went down, and then the process of the how those who have been captured went through a certain process before they even got on the slave ship, and one of those being like, there's something called the Tree of Forgetfulness, where they walk around this tree and it's like causes them to forget their roots, where they're not even going to want to go back to it. And you can say what you will if you think it's real or not, but you can look at the reality of how people actually don't for the most part have an interest in getting back to their roots. And unfortunately, whatever was done, including that and the whole totality of everything that was done, has had that effect of by and large, people not wanting to get back to their roots, people of African descent, particularly descendants of the, those who went through the slave trade and the slavery process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we are fortunate that there are growing numbers of people who are looking to reconnect to their roots and reconnect to culture with a level of authenticity. And that is something we have to be just very fortunate that there are preservers of life, preservers of culture who've dedicated their existence to preserving that, even during the times of invasion, during the times where the culture was trying to be, just wiped out. They decided to even flee from that type of destruction in order to preserve the culture. They went into even hiding and lived in desolate places and reinvented themselves away from the opulence. And that's what people may be coming to, looking for the opulence within the culture, which is still there. It's still very vibrant and still very grounded, but you have to be looking at it from a different set of eyes. You won't necessarily see it in the pyramids and the temple structures that we see in the in the books, but the vibrancy and authenticity of it is very well intact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel very fortunate to live in a time where, on one hand, you have people waking up like this and really seeing that the modern way of life has not been fruitful for us, and at the same time, you have organizations and people who are really working to make Africa available once again to people from the modern world, where we've been disconnected from it for so long. So it's an exciting time, and it's exciting to be a part of this, and as well, just looking forward to seeing what will be possible, what can be accomplished when large groups of people find a way to get together and build around something that's not the American style so-called democratic models
Absolutely.
and capitalistic systems,
Yeah. And
or
we,
or the communistic system. All these modern systems that people run from capitalism and they want to go to communism or socialism. Like that's gonna like, but all of that all of those are constructs of the same groups, and all of those were conceived around the same time by the same groups of people who, and even funded and disseminated by the same groups of people who are basically the ones trying to run the show and make sure they keep everybody under their control.
absolutely. And that's why it's important. As you stated, there are many, many organizations and groups that are embracing this notion of returning to Africa, reclaiming your roots, repatriating to the motherland, all of those things. But we encourage, as Kasabez was saying earlier, that we encourage you to, take things step by step and educate yourself before, making the big leap. And that's where we find people oftentimes get very discouraged or disappointed because, yes, Africa has all of what you are looking for, but it may not be what you're expecting. And if you don't have like a education about just trying to fit into the culture, fit into the society, you may find yourself struggling for years unnecessarily, as opposed to getting some education, getting some understandings before you take that deep dive. So, as he
And for sure,
stated,
that's like what we do at the Earth Center and with the Kebtah movement is we bring education to the West in order to kind of help the traditional ways and traditional customs and values and principles to be understood in the modern world. I mean, nowadays you can't even barely talk to somebody and have a constructive conversation where both sides don't agree on some things. All it takes is for people to disagree on something, or one person to be doing something that another person doesn't like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you say something about it, and then it's finished. How do you build the world like that? How do you build a society or something that you and your children can depend on together if everybody is ready to throw out or just destroy their relationships, cut off their relationships based on the smallest type of critique or whatever? I didn't like this, I didn't like that, and then you're ready to like throw everything away.
yeah. And that, again, that goes back to that notion of emotionalism, looking at that notion of family and a community, building together. You have to go through those challenges. Like nobody said like marriage, family life, community life, any of that is easy. But when you think of the goal that you're striving for, you find ways using your intelligence to work through whatever challenges that may come about. That's culture. That is humanity. That is a logic that just makes sense.
And there's even whole ways of ceremonies of how to do that we experience. I was just looking at, for example, some footage, because tomorrow we're going to be talking to Dusabo Museum again about this time we'll be talking about kings and queens and other African things is the name of the title. So I was looking at some footage of I guess an audience we had with His Majesty Kupi and Delhi, peace be unto him. But he was telling us about or he gave us a chance to ask questions. And one of the questions is like, how do you as a king kind of enforce the principles on people and make sure that people are following the traditional ways? And he said, like, as a king, it's not my place to tell people what to do and force people how to do on how to do things. You know what I mean? And that was striking to me, like, wow. Because when you think about monarchies, right, we always get this idea of, the king is the tyrant, the king is the one who is forcing all of his subjects to follow him, and then any dissent has to be crushed with the iron fist and all this. And that's not really what monarchy, a traditional monarchy, is. It's really a leadership position where you lead by example and you have principles and responsibilities that you follow according to your forefathers, is how he explained it. But there are ways to kind of get people to, let's say, correct themselves. Not necessarily have to put them in jail, but to get them to correct themselves. One of the ceremonies we saw during our 30-year celebration was what's called the hunter ceremony, where they get together and they sing proverbs about each other, and those proverbs will be about what you did. I think one of the first people, as they were explaining to us, is like, oh, this person just showed up drunk in front of all of these foreigners. It's not a good reflection on us. And then that person went and sat down and didn't say anything else for the whole time, and then it went on from there. But it's like a way of kind of bringing correction to other people in a way that's not confrontational or hostile, but a way where you don't always have to every time bring some correction, unless it's like an extreme situation. You don't always have to like chastise people for everything, or think you're gonna let me just take this person off social media or whatever, unfriend the person. But it's like, then you wait for the moment that's appropriate to bring the correction where the person is ready to receive it, because this is a person who's part of your community, and you can't just like kick people out of your community every time they do something. You have to find a way to bring correction so that they will be able to function in harmony with the group.
That's a whole nother dynamic in and of itself.
You remember in 2016, and there was like this, somebody got their phone stolen, and then we got some idea of who might have done it, and then it's like you thought that person, you wouldn't see that person anymore, and then you saw him again. And it's like, it's like the explanation was like, yeah, we don't kick people out of our community. I'm like, where are they supposed to go? You don't have a cage to lock them in and just leave them there. You know what I mean? You have to find a way to correct them, and then you continue to function together.
Yeah. It's again very interesting the way that society functions. From my understanding, there's a time where there weren't even such things as prisons and jails. To lock someone's spirit was a spiritual crime. So it just was unheard of that you didn't do that. You found correction. And society, I know even in the days when I first started traveling to Meritah, like 14 years ago, and I didn't see a police car or hear a siren for like the first 3 weeks that I was there. And when I heard one, I was like freaking out, like, what in the world is that? Where are those lights coming from? But and I was asking after that, like, well, where is the police? Where is the governing forces? And they're like, we self-govern ourselves. Like they didn't need like an outside force to come in, like with the authority to tell them what to do and how to do it. They allowed the community to correct each other in that light. So it was just so many cultural lessons and experiences that we don't have like a context for in West. But if we humble ourselves and fit into that order, we can see how there's just a logic there that just makes sense. But it's not an easy path or an easy thing to do because of the way we've been miseducated. So you do have like this uncomfortability in trying to acclimate to it. But at the same time, if you're working together for a common goal, a common good, you just find ways to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult because more or less it runs contrary to everything that we're taught to value and, desire in the modern system that really, presents itself in a way that's very attractive. But it's almost like, attractive the same way most of the grocery stores that we see are attractive in the store, or the fast food is attractive. It's convenient, it's easy, it's cheap, blah, 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 blah. And then, but you mess around and eat it, and then it makes you sick. And so that's the same way our society is, but it makes us sick, and at the same time it's like addictive, and we can't get ourselves off of it. So it's just in the traditions, it's put together in a way that's like, very well thought out, and thought out to the extent that people have been functioning on certain principles and with certain customs and traditions that go back hundreds or thousands of years, versus like ideas that people are functioning on nowadays, and things that people are saying and using and considering to be like true. And those ideas are, have been predominant for maybe 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so it's a infantile way of going about things, where you're going on what feels good, what feels right, instead of like what's thought out and what's been proven to work and what's been refined based on experience. So, when you put the two next to each other, yeah, one feels good, but when you see that it's making you sick and it's destroying you, then what worse option do you have than continuing to do the same thing to continue getting the same results that you see, not even just yourself, but probably your aunties, your uncles, your sisters, your brothers, your parents, your grandparents have fallen victim to. We have to find a different way to go about things, and then, to do something different is a challenge. It's like if you spent your whole life and your career is like you're an accountant and you sit in front of the computer, and then 50 years old, and then you have to learn how to become a farmer all of a sudden. Like, that's going to be tough, but if you don't do it, maybe you won't survive. So what do you do? In any case, we've gone like 45 minutes, and it's like we haven't even gotten to talk about that much, because there's so much to the culture, and we try to bring different principles and ideas to you here and there, but we can only do so much at a time. So bear with us.
Absolutely. And you speaking on that notion of work ethic, that's a whole nother topic that we should be talking about. You think about the work ethic in order to survive versus the work ethic that we instill in the West, like go to college, get a good job, sit behind that accounting desk. And not to say there's anything wrong with those types of paths or careers.
I know you're not saying there's nothing wrong with the sitting behind the desk and the computer and accounting and stuff like that. Like, I know there's nothing wrong with that, okay?
But the skill it takes to survive and live in nature, to be in harmony with your surroundings, to grow your own food for your family and for your survival, that takes,
or just wash clothes.
Yeah.
Or just wash clothes or cook. Like, we don't have washing machines over here, and we have some sisters who help us with our laundry, because we have 6 kids, and it's a lot for us to try to deal with. The kids are at school, they can't wash all the clothes all the time and all of that. So yeah, we have some sisters who come and help us, and they came today, and I was back there, and sisters going at the wash. I'm like, man, I'd be because they had already been out there for maybe 2 or 3 hours at that maybe a couple hours at that point. I'm like, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't be able to do it. I'm just gonna say that if I did have to do that, I'd be wore out for the next 2 or 3 days.
But even like
you
in
grow up
culture,
doing that,
you can't afford to be lazy. You cannot,
right? No,
you can get away with those things with microwave food, fast food, ordering out, all of those things you can get away with. You can even go, probably 3 weeks without washing your clothes if you wanted to. But in the society like you're talking about, you're not going to allow that to happen because it's like that will catch up to you and hurt you on the other side. So you don't see a laziness in traditional society, in culture.
yeah. Just cleaning your floors is a whole thing. We get floors have to be mopped daily because you have dust coming from the air. It's not just like it's not just like where once a week you can mop or something like this. Like you got to mop the floor every day, and you mop the floor. You don't have a mop; you just have a towel. And there's a towel right here.
Oh gosh, please don't.
You have a towel, and you just take the towel like this and use the floor like oh man, and then I tried it, and it's hard, man. I'm like, whoa. Just after a couple minutes, I'm like, I'm not used to this, and I'm probably telling on myself a little bit too much right now, but it's just it's something that people here grow up doing, and it makes you like physically fit. Like you don't need to go to the gym. You just clean the floor, clean your clothes, make food. You take the mortar and pestle. I have to pound, or like when you're making the toe or the fufu, and you have the the spoon. You just going at it like I'm like, man, you had these technical difficulties, and I think it's a cue that it's about time for us to wrap this up. But any last words before we close?
Any last words? I would just encourage anyone who is considering moving, traveling, visiting Africa to make sure you find a way to go beyond like a touristic visit, to find a way to connect with traditional people, everyday people, not necessarily just going to like the museums and the historical sites, but actually spend some time with people, and you'll hopefully come to respect the culture itself for preserving like the authenticity of being a human being.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm so grateful for, just having the community of the Earth Center, that even before we get here, I don't have to come here and try to make friends and make connections. Like it's already here. So, anyone who's thinking of travel to Africa, we, do our tours every year, and we welcome everybody to come out and join us and see Africa for yourself. And we have a very experienced team of people who lead these pilgrimages where you'll be safe, you'll be well taken care of, and you'll have a great time and a very edifying and uplifting experience. So that being said, cut it.
See you next episode, number 35.
Yeah, see you next time on the Sunnyside. All right, we'll see. We'll see if we can get our brother Nahez. I don't know if you missed Nahez today. Hopefully, we did a good enough job without him. But of course, we miss our brother. He's right now at the temple, and I'll be joining him shortly. So maybe we'll get to do something together while we'll be together out there. So moving forward too, we're going to be since it's getting warm and we're going to have springtime supposedly soon in the Arctic out there, people will be starting to think about, hopefully some people will be thinking about planting in their gardens or dealing with some type of growing their food and things like that. So we're going to talk to some people who are actively doing that and see what we can learn from them.
Sounds great.
All right. See you next time on the Sunnyside.
Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street.